Today's podcast is sponsored by FastBitcoins.com. FastBitcoins provides a simple way for people to buy Bitcoin directly from their bank account or with cash in physical stores. Their services are rapidly growing in availability across the UK, Estonia, as well as Canada, and they're launching in Australia soon too. FastBitcoins is committed to providing high-quality Bitcoin-only services. They want to make sure that the growing number of people interested in buying and benefiting from the possibilities of Bitcoin can do so easily, securely, and with as few distractions as possible. Learn more about FastBitcoin's range of services at fastbitcoins.com, including how you can earn Bitcoin for free through their referral scheme. That is fastbitcoins.com. Fastbitcoins.com. Go check them out. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? I would like to welcome you back to the Real Talk with Zuby podcast. On today's episode, we have got on the creator of fastbitcoins.com. He is an entrepreneur, and he's a very interesting guy. And this is Danny Brewster. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bit of a fan, to be fair. Since I discovered you about 6 months ago with Peter McCormack.
Okay.
I've been following your progress and quite enjoy your Twitter forays into stirring it up. It's been quite the entertainment during this lockdown period, to be fair. Some things I agree with you on, some things I don't. But,
I think that's the case for pretty much everyone who follows me.
But I like,
it should be.
I like the games you play.
I don't play games. I'm just me, and people enjoy it, so that's good. Awesome, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
I've got quite a storied background from the Lincolnshire region of the UK. I'm actually originally from Boston, where the Pilgrim Fathers left from, or that was held in jail here, that travelled over to the US. Mm-hmm. So Boston in Massachusetts is named after Boston here, where I'm originally from. It's very different. It's a small market town in a semi-rural location. Yeah. I, from a young age, played a lot of football, soccer, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on, and played for a professional club at the Centre of Excellence, which turned into quite a huge story many years later with the investigations into abuse in football. Fortunately for myself, I didn't actually go through any abuse or anything, but my coaches at the time were heavily implicated in that, and went through school, was a bit of a tearaway, didn't really do as well as what I should have done in the classroom environment. Left school, couldn't get into college because of my school report, so I got a job in a bank instead. Mm-hmm. From the age of 14, heavily interested in computers and things like that. Left school, got a job in a bank. From there, I just plodding along in the financial sector. Left there, joined my father's business, which was a security company. So I did, for all of my sins, some time in the security industry, helped grow the business. From there, broke my hand, discovered Bitcoin, because I couldn't go to work, literally just browsing the web after breaking my hand and having my hand in pot. Discovered Bitcoin, fell down that rabbit hole, and the rest is history.
Okay. And when did you discover Bitcoin?
End of 2011, early 2012.
Okay. So
I then moved to Cyprus because my daughter, her mother married somebody in the RAF. They got posted to RAF Akrotiri. So instead of denying my daughter that opportunity to go and live and experience that, I basically upped my life with my partner at the time, moved over there, and just established myself in Cyprus.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot there. That could, yeah, go ahead.
Then it gets interesting after that.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
the boring part.
Okay. All right. Tell us about the juicy stuff.
Lived through the bank bail-ins, where the Cypriot government was was in negotiations for a bailout with the IMF and the European Union in 2012, 2013. And essentially what they said is you have to put your hands into everybody's bank accounts and haircut the money to recapitalize the banks to qualify for these loans. Mm-hmm. So they shut the banks literally overnight. If you was rich enough or connected enough to politicians, you had plenty of notice to get your money out of the country. It later came out that many of the politicians' families and things, and there was talk that they was targeting the Russian money that was holed up in Cyprus in investments and for tax evasion and things. But all of the Russian money left months before for Malta. So it was the average Cypriot on the end of the whip on that occasion. And initially, what they wanted to do was they wanted to haircut 8% of everything over €1,000 in your bank account.
Wow.
But what the president at the time managed to go back to them and say, we can't do that. That's people's shopping money. That's the money that they feed their families with. So what they did was they made an agreement and they merged two of the largest banks. And then they haircut 50% of everything over €100,000 you had in your account.
Wow.
So now they was targeting businesses that had cash reserves that was ready to pay payroll and things like that. And they found themselves paying for all of those mistakes.
Wow. I had no idea about that. I didn't even know that was, I mean, I guess depending on where you are, almost anything is possible by the government, depending on, but
in fact,
that's crazy.
But the actual reality of the situation is Cypriots were borrowing money from the Cypriot banks to invest in Greek bonds, which were really risky. So that's paying a higher return. So on the face of everything, Cyprus was booming and doing really well because everybody was earning all of this money because they was borrowing cheaply, investing it in Greece, and then Greece defaulted, which basically meant everybody stopped getting paid for the money that they had invested. So they're still on the hook for these loans. So it was a little bit self-inflicted that people choose to ignore somewhat. But the conditions to enable that were promoted by the banks and things like that. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think most people don't really, all of this stuff, finance stuff, economic stuff is complicated even amongst people who really look into it and study it and think about it. But I think
it keeps everybody from asking too many questions. If they don't think, I fully understand this, I can't have a position or opinion, which for the most of the time is understandable. But this is your livelihood. This is what feeds your family. I'm pretty sure I've seen a quote somewhere with regards to if people understood how the monetary system worked, there'd be a revolution overnight.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, most people don't even know that. I mean, it's funny. I mean, we're obviously going to talk about Bitcoin, but what's the first thing that a lot of people say about Bitcoin is that, oh, it's not backed by anything. And I'm like, okay, what are your pounds and dollars? Right? It's amazing. You still have people who think that pounds and dollars are backed by physical gold, or like people don't understand that money is just I mean, look at the situation we're in right now. We're in the midst of this pandemic. The government is just, I don't know, the US has printed, I don't know, 3 trillion or 6 trillion. I mean, that's not even a fathomable, right? That number isn't even a number you can sort of quantify in your head. 6 trillion just in a matter of months. And we have no idea how much money is just being printed daily and just being put on them. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy how we just kind of get on with normal life and people just do things, and everyone sort of knows what money is on a very basic level, but on a deeper level, very few people ever take the time to think of like, okay, what is money? What gives it its value? Where does it come from? Why do I trust it? Why are all these different currencies? What is inflation? All these kind of things. And I think when you really do look into that, something like Bitcoin makes a lot more sense to you. A lot of the criticisms that people try to levy at things like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general are are more so applicable to normal fiat currency. So tell us a little bit more about what drew you towards Bitcoin, and what were your initial thoughts when you went down that rabbit hole?
My I discovered Bitcoin before I moved to Cyprus.
Okay.
So I was already trading Bitcoin before then. I actually, way back in 2011, 2012, there was an exchange in the UK called Intersango. They had like faster payments. It was so easy to buy Bitcoin then. You didn't have to go through all of the KYC processes and stuff. So I was already invested in Bitcoin by the time that I moved away. But the aspect for Bitcoin for me was the censorship resistance. It was, if it was mine, it was mine. Nobody could take that from me without me giving it up to them. The whole I understood that the pound wasn't backed by anything, because I can remember on one of my first days sat in a retail bank just looking at the £20 note, and I said, I promised to pay the bearer. I was bored. I just said, I promised to pay the bearer what? And that's when somebody first said to me, I'll just give you another one of those notes for it. So I said, oh, so it's an empty promise. So I always, from being 16, I always had that understanding that money wasn't backed by anything. But the people, I try to avoid whataboutisms when it comes to comparing Bitcoin to the legacy financial systems that we have. It's very easy to say, but you can do all of that with fiat and everything. Essentially, Bitcoin is also fiat, but the only thing it's backed by is the proof of work that is done by the miners, without getting too technical. So it's Bitcoin is ultimately backed by the energy that has been burnt to create it and to verify that it's real and that you own it. So, which is a darn sight more backing than whatever Mr. Munchin at the Treasury wants to create out of thin air on his database. The numbers that are bounded around like 6 trillion and things, they have engineered the system to be extremely complex. So it's not like they've just turned on the photocopier and photocopied a whole bunch of $100 bills. A lot of them are bonds and stuff, but ultimately it's just garbage. And the scary thing for me of everything that's happening right now is in 6 to 12 months' time, when this thing somewhat passed over, the impact of all of this, all of these fiscal policies and things, that's when it's going to start to really impact the mum and pop that's going to do their weekly shop and things like that. I've explained to my partner. I've said to her, I said, you just wait and see. Compare your shopping receipts at the start of this year with the start of next year, and see where it's really where we're really at. That's the only way, because food is food. It doesn't really start providing more energy or value per pound spent year on year.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So I want to take it a step back 1 second. I'm aware that there are going to be some people who are listening to this who, most people I imagine, will be aware of Bitcoin. Probably a minority will maybe have some or have dabbled in it. But there are still a lot of people majority of people still do not really understand what Bitcoin is. So could you give a simple breakdown to someone who may be listening to this, who's curious about Bitcoin, but doesn't really get it, is really trying to get their head around it? How would you explain it to them in simple terms?
Simple terms. The only way that I can describe it is the reserve currency of the internet. It's a universal, or it doesn't recognize borders, so it doesn't recognize what your government has to say or do. It's basically it's gold with wings. You you can literally transport gold from one side of Bitcoin from one side of the world to the other side of the world, and not have to rely on anybody else um, other than the person receiving it to acknowledge that they've received it. You don't have to trust anybody in between that, and nobody can stop that from happening. Nobody can take that away from you once you've received it, unless you give them access to it. And the other aspect of gold is the store of value, which is probably right now the biggest aspect of Bitcoin, especially with when you're comparing it in value to, say, the US dollar that's being created. Bitcoin is finite. There's only ever going to be a maximum of 21 million full Bitcoins. Well, it's actually just under for many different reasons. But to change the amount of Bitcoin that will ever exist, you have to convince everybody else that's holding it and participating in the network to change that number.
Yes. That
includes getting me personally and anybody else like Elon Musk that holds a quarter of a Bitcoin to change those rules and devalue their own position. I would never agree to that. So instantly, me and the person that wants to change the rules are going to be on two different networks, because I'm never changing that rule.
Yeah.
That's what I agreed to. That's what I understood. And even because of the decentralized nature of it, and because no government can get in the way, you can't drop a bomb on every single person that holds Bitcoin to force them to change their mind and to devalue Bitcoin. And the implications of that are huge. But because of that, and when you're valuing it against like the dollar and stuff, it can create rather good headlines when the price goes from $10 to $1,300, and then from $700 up to $20,000. But we can go can touch on the market cycles and things, and the FOMO and the whole cyclical events that we seem to go through every 4 years roughly with Bitcoin. We're coming up to probably another one, but
yeah, man. So as someone who's been in the world, the Bitcoin world for a long time, actually, I'm a lot newer to it than you are. I first heard about it, I want to say relatively maybe in the mid 2010s, but I didn't really look into it properly until 2017. Because I don't know, I'd heard about it, but I think I just thought it was something like PayPal or some sort of in-video game currency or something, where I just heard here and there, I'd hear it mentioned, but no one ever explained it to me. I never read a book. I never sat down and really investigated it. So I guess two questions here. One, during the course, what's it been like to be involved over the period of 8 or 9 years and seeing all of these ups and downs and fluctuations, and this thing spreading from what started out as an extremely niche, I mean, it's still a niche, but it was like a super duper tiny niche of people who even knew what this thing was. What's it been like to see that grow into the mainstream to the point that you're right, it's typically if the price breaks certain barriers that it'll get coverage in mainstream media, but just that level of awareness and involvement and growth, and perhaps more importantly, where do you sort of see that going in the next 10 years?
I really try to avoid the whole reading the tea leaves scenario.
Yeah.
And for me, I started a business in Cyprus. This is probably the real juicy part of the journey. I started a business there. It was a bad business model. I raised some capital from within the Bitcoin community at the time, and it was arguably the most forefront approach at taking Bitcoin mainstream. We appeared to have what was the the perfect storm of events. We had the banks literally putting their hands into people's bank accounts. You would have thought that the general population would begin to understand what money was and things. But so what I did was I created a business that aimed to create physical locations where people could go and learn what Bitcoin is and buy Bitcoin in exchange. It was a company, and we also had our own payment network, which linked. We was innovating with multi-signature wallets, which is like a more secure way of storing Bitcoin, especially for the layman. So we was trying to create a way for the average Cypriot to use and interact with Bitcoin without deviating too far away from their existing behaviors. So we created a beautiful physical location and things like that. I made some mistakes in some of the people that I hired. It ultimately led to a little bit of a mutiny within the company. 100% my fault. I made some bad decisions, some bad hires. The original business model wasn't great. On reflection, it was far too early. It's probably far too early for such a business right now. Yeah. We probably still need another 40, 50 years before we're ready for anything like that. We was literally 2 weeks away from McDonald's in Cyprus accepting Bitcoin. We had agreed with them. We just needed one sign-off for one more director for them to accept, because you couldn't use cards in Cyprus at McDonald's then. It was a bit of a because the card payment networks was it was a monopoly by a company called JCC, which was owned by all of the banks together.
Oh wow! Okay.
So and they didn't do special deals for anyone, not even McDonald's. So you paid their rate, which for me is absolutely crazy. I can remember the first time going into McDonald's in Larnaca in Cyprus and going to pay with my debit card, and I was like, "Sorry, we don't accept cards; it's cash only." I was like, "Oh, great! Where's the ATM?" And so that was going to be like really advanced at the time and just out of this world. For Bitcoin itself, there were some things that we did that ended up on like the front of the Wall Street Journal and stuff during the 2013 pump up in November up to like $1,200. There was a lot of the things that we was doing, and the company exploded in a great ball of flames. I literally came back to the UK for 5 days, and I'm still sat here now. My house, my dogs, everything was still in Cyprus. There was a European arrest warrant issued for me.
Oh, wow.
I received threats towards my daughter and stuff, who was still in Cyprus.
How come? What warrant for what?
There was 5 different things on this warrant, each of them laughable when it actually came down to it. But I ended up. It took them 18 months to issue that and arrest me in the UK. I went through the whole extradition proceedings, got granted. I was on bail for 11 months while the whole process was completed. Down between, I was on an electronic curfew for 3 months as well. So they just wanted to make sure that I wasn't leaving the country. So I was on tag for 3 months. And then out of nowhere, they dropped it. Before I'd even been arrested, I'd received an offer to sign over all of the assets of the companies in Cyprus to these people that transpired to be named in this warrant against me as making a complaint against me. They offered for it all to disappear if I signed over all of the assets of the company. So essentially, I was just being blackmailed.
And these are people who were working for you? These were
there was
in the company?
One of them that was working for me, and the 3 of them were closely linked to the company through external contractors and things, all very powerful people and extremely influential people. Some of the newspaper stories that was being pushed out and the narrative and the entire Bitcoin community essentially turned against me. Apart from a few people that was close to the situation that actually understood what was happening. I perhaps didn't handle it in the best ways. I literally had to go silent for the best part of 3 years, like radio silence whilst I fought it and dealt with everything. But then out of nowhere, after 11 months, they literally dropped the warrant. I'd been offering all along to be interviewed at the Cypriot embassy in London. They point blank refused. They wanted me over in Cyprus so they could hold me on remand whilst they questioned me.
Mm-hmm. So what was alleged? This is the thing. So there's
obtaining credit under false pretenses. We paid for everything pro forma. Mm-hmm. What else was there? There was theft, which was the only reason why the warrant could have been issued in the first place.
Okay.
But that's an even better story. There was procuring documents by false pretenses, uttering a false document, and money laundering.
Okay.
In all of these complaints, I only received funds for one of them. So that's where we assumed that the money laundering charge was tagged on to add an additional 14 years to give it weight of potential time. Mm-hmm. The theft was apparently I'd sold somebody 20,000 euros worth of Bitcoin on Christmas Eve. I'd agreed to hold those Bitcoins for them until Neo opened and we had the software ready and they could become a customer. They paid me in cash. This person wasn't capable of holding their own Bitcoin securely and stuff. That's why I agreed. We had the contracts, we signed, I had the receipts and everything. They made that complaint. Literally 2 days after I'd been back in the UK and this had all blown up, I'd contacted them directly. I said, look, I'll buy them off you for what you paid for, what you paid me for them, which was I got the tough end of that deal, basically, because the price had dropped from where they had purchased them. But I had 20,000 euros deposited to their bank accounts in cash, and I had the bank receipt. I had a friend do it locally in Cyprus, and I literally had that receipt. So that complaint was completely null and void. It shouldn't have been there. And the police didn't know that I had made that payment, even though we'd been sending them the documents to say, look, this complaint isn't valid. Here's the receipt. The investigating officer wasn't aware until 2 days before they interviewed me at the Cypriot embassy in London, like months after all of this had happened and gone down. Mm-hmm. And they even admitted I wasn't permitted to have a lawyer present when they interviewed me at the Cypriot embassy in London. Mm-hmm. And they literally just wanted to get it gone, get it brushed under the carpet, and just get it all dealt with. So it was a 5-hour interview at the embassy without a lawyer. So I recorded it on my phone. So I literally had my phone, not this one, but my phone on the desk sat in front of me recording the whole thing, because I knew if there's going to try and screw me over in the future, I could just dangle that in front of the judge at Westminster and say, look, they wouldn't even allow me, together with the emails denying me having a lawyer present. It wouldn't stand up in the future. It sounds crazy. Corrupt from start to finish. But it's ultimately my fault. It was me that had the ideas and what we did, and the way that it was all ultimately handled was my fault. Absolutely fine with that. The beauty of it all was during my time on bail and everything, and being couldn't really commit, couldn't do anything, because everything was just up in the air. Mm-hmm. So I just retaught myself how to code and just started building. And from there, I iterated out and developed what became Fast Bitcoins.
Okay, cool. So tell us a little bit more about Fast Bitcoins.
Okay, so my idea has always been to be able to give more people access to buying and selling Bitcoin and to obtaining it for themselves. It's still extremely difficult, and there's so many pitfalls for accessing Bitcoin. If you use Bitcoin ATMs, they're extremely expensive. If you use the exchanges online, you can generally be bombarded with like a trading interface that's extremely complex. There's very few people that will offer like dollar cost averaging services and things like that. So what I originally did was developed a way to give people access in a way no different to going and buying like a £10 Vodafone top-up voucher for your prepaid mobile phone and things. So instead of creating or buying thousands of pounds worth of hardware to sit in the corner of a convenience store or a restaurant type of place, we had a handheld device, a point of sale device for merchants, so they can generate revenues for themselves by selling our vouchers. We pay merchants like 2% of all transactions that they do through this device and things, and it enables us to grow much faster. And we want to give people to become that option where you don't even need to look to see if there's one of our locations near you. And we're in the first year, we've grown roughly like 74.64% month on month from May last year up till April this year. April onwards is probably going to be a bit slower because of that virus. But it's been great because we've managed to get locations in Canada, Estonia, and actually the UK, and we're just about to go into Australia as well. Germany, we've got a location in Latvia. We really are starting to expand. And one aspect of business that we overlooked, or I should say that was overlooked, was what happens if nobody can go out and access these locations anymore? Yeah. Something I didn't really give too much thought about. So we also had the Fifth Money Laundering Directive to make changes to our services to adhere to that regulation, because the government's here now to spoil the fun and the party and to make things a little bit more awkward. So we took a couple of months off during this period. We've pushed forward all of our updates to really improve our services and offerings. So we're introducing like dollar cost averaging and things, so people can just regularly buy £10 a week, £20 a month, or on a certain day of the week or every few days, just execute an order. You don't become emotionally invested in the price movements. You just stack your Satoshis over a longer period of time, and it's the best way to buy into Bitcoin. I still always try and promote earn Bitcoin. That is by far the best way to obtain Bitcoin. But if you can't, just buy Bitcoin and hold on to it, and then give us a couple of decades and we'll see where we're at.
And what do you think a couple of decades looks like? I know you said you don't like to do predictions, and I'm not even talking about a price prediction per se, but what's happened in the last 10 years you've been involved. How do you see, looking at what's going on nationally, internationally, politically, culturally, monetarily, all these different aspects, how do you see Bitcoin fitting into the big picture?
If you live in my echo chamber, a lot of people would like to see the world burn and Bitcoin become the monetary standard overnight. I don't see that happening. I'd hate to be the haves in a world of have-nots. So it's going to be a gradual progression, but more and more people are going to become aware of Bitcoin and the fundamental aspects of it. We've still got a very long way to go after seeing the state of affairs when J.K. Rowling asked, okay, explain Bitcoin to me. Literally every man and his dog, and some of the responses was just...
I haven't seen that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Wow. So there's... it's just a cringe fest. I'm Bitcoin only. I don't deal with all of the alts or anything like that. Bitcoin for me, I struggle to have the time to stay up to date with what's happening in the Bitcoin world alone, let alone 500 other currencies that, for the most part, have been designed to enrich the people that created them. And just looking at that post, this next, when we go through like FOMO and the massive run up in price and then inevitably the massive crash, because nothing should go up that fast, sustainably, but like it's not sustainable for such parabolic rises, really, in my opinion. But every other post is somebody trying to sell something that is better than Bitcoin. Because they asked about Bitcoin.
Explain the post for someone. Most people listening won't even know what you're talking about.
I think J.K. Rowling was drunk.
Okay.
She's the author from Harry Potter. If you've been living under a rock for the last 20 years, and basically she just tweeted, "Don't try I don't understand Bitcoin," and literally, so explain it to me. Which was just asking for trouble. It got explained to her in a million different ways on like trying to reference.
Are you knocking the table? Sorry, it's really loud. Yeah.
Sorry. It got explained to her in a million different ways, trying to reference Harry Potter and the characters and everything. And then you had the owner or founder from one of the biggest exchanges basically said to her, if you I'll give you one Bitcoin, and then basically said if you teach a woman to fish, the old saying, the old cliche, if you teach a woman to fish, you feed her for a lifetime. If you give a woman a fish, you feed her for a day. And he said, not that not that I'm saying that you like to eat. And it's just like, wow, really? So you're either insinuating that she's fat or she likes her. It's like, there's just no need. Like, she asked for an explanation, like, but you're taking this as an opportunity to make the most horrendous comments. And then, funnily enough, somebody with a fake Twitter account posted, I've just, like, literally, it's not a fake account. It's actually like quite a well-known Bitcoiner, I think. And they changed their profile picture and the name to J.K. Rowling, the same profile picture. And basically posted a screenshot of them buying some Bitcoin. And then basically, okay, I've bitten the bullet. Just bought my first $100 of Bitcoin.
Oh, gosh.
And the first comment, or the top comment on that, was from the owner of arguably the biggest exchange in the world, like the CEO. He fell for this fake account saying, and the first thing he did was promote the fact that she could buy all of these other altcoins through his exchange. No. And for me, it's like, we've still got such a long way to go. Because if the CEO of the biggest exchange in the world, or arguably the biggest exchange in the world, can fall for a fake account, how many people are still falling for the... I'm pretty sure most of everybody that's on Twitter has seen them, these giveaway scams and stuff where you make I'm pretty sure you get them. I'm giving away Bitcoin. Do this, do that. Elon Musk is arguably the most common one, or like for Ethereum, and giving Ethereum away. I've just sent 5 Ethereum and got 10 back. People still fall for those type of things. And now it makes even more sense when the CEO of the biggest exchange falls literally for somebody pretending to be J.K. Rowling.
Yeah. Well, I'm British, but I'm also Nigerian. So I've had many years to know to be suspicious about people offering to give you loads of money if you send them if you send them a little bit. I think everyone has received the email from the Nigerian prince or so.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure there's one guy sat in Lagos that's like just sat with piles of money going, I'm trying to give it away.
Yeah,
nobody wants it.
It is very funny. I remember a couple of years ago there some house did get investigated. I can't remember.
Money.
Yeah, no, that was hilarious. And so I was saying, oh man, maybe he really was trying to give it away.
But the thing is, like for me, like just Nigeria alone, like with looking at that entire market, what is it, 100 million people population,
Oh,
or even
more
more
than
age?
that.
Oh, um, that's a huge economy,
Hmm.
really. I've just read the growth delusion. So GDP means nothing to me anymore, and the way in which it's measured and stuff. But most of Nigeria is cut off from e-commerce
Hmm.
with the rest of the world. Um, because of the reputation, it's probably well, it's obviously a minority of people that
Oh
have
yeah.
given it that review. So for me, like Bitcoin being the way in which that it's trustless, and it's push payments, not pull payments. You literally have to push the payment to somebody. They can't just take it from you.
Hmm.
So for me, the use case of Bitcoin in Nigeria, especially opening it up to global commerce, and I've got say friends, but acquaintances in the space that I know that are developers in Nigeria that are working on that. So hopefully, in the next few years, we start to see the benefits of some of their work, and the potential is clear.
Yeah.
And it's such an entrepreneurial, for better and for worse,
Oh yeah.
environment
Hmm.
from what I can gather.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, certainly. I mean, yeah. I mean, especially, I'm Igbo myself, and Igbo people specifically are known for being like entrepreneurs and very business minded, etc. Like a lot of people who see what I do with my business and stuff. A lot of people are you Igbo? And they're like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. With
the
all the different things I do.
the one of the largest exchanges in the UK is actually a good friend of mine. The CEO is originally from Nigeria,
Okay.
um, Obi Nwosu,
Hmm.
and
It's a
he's
very
great.
Nigerian name.
Yeah, he's great. He actually
That's not
made
just
me.
Nigerian. That's also Igbo as well.
Oh, probably speak to Obi.
Yeah, I can
Um,
tell by the name.
he's much more philosophical than me, and thinks about things much more deeply than I do. And
Hmm.
he's got probably the best Twitter handle at Obi. He was an early adopter of Twitter, clearly.
Yeah.
But the I've lost what the train of
Yeah,
thought.
I think you were
Um,
talking about the potential for
yeah,
Bitcoin in
and
Nigeria and similar countries.
yeah, we've just done a deal. We've got a subsidiary in Uganda. We've got a pilot scheme in Uganda. We've got somebody in Ghana that's going to start developing our network of locations in those countries to give people access to Bitcoin
Hmm.
through our services there. And for me, um, the potential is absolutely massive. And most of these economies run on digital money already through like M-Pesa and things like that with the prepaid minutes on phones.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's huge potential.
Yeah, I mean, one big question there, I know from sort of firsthand experience with Nigeria, but it'll be the same in a lot of countries, is one barrier or hurdle that'll certainly need to be overcome is sort of a matter of infrastructure. Because with Bitcoin, it's digital, right? With cash, you don't need these are these are cash economies because everyone can have cash. You don't need a bank account, you don't need ATMs, you don't need this. You could be working in a market, you could be anywhere, and people can use cash, people can use pay for phone vouchers and cash, etc. It's not like here where it's all contactless and chip and pin and Apple Pay, Google Pay. And I think it's going to be a long time. It'll be a while until that is the case. So a question I guess I would have is with something like Bitcoin, you would still need not as much infrastructure as some of those other things, but you'd still need some level of infrastructure and internet access and connectivity, etc. So that is one area where I do wonder in developing countries how that bridge will be crossed.
Don't quote me on it, but I do believe in some of the economies in Africa, more people have mobile phones than they have running water.
They do, yes. Fact.
So more people have access. You can send a Bitcoin transaction via SMS text message. You can broadcast the transaction.
Okay.
You can do
I
it.
don't. Okay, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, we've got there's a big company in the space called Blockstream, and they literally have satellites orbiting the Earth to give like global coverage to be able to obtain the data from the Bitcoin network as to what's happening. So you can verify your own transactions. You don't even need the internet.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they're introducing kits now. It's still obviously quite expensive to get those kits, but for right now they're about $200. But also when you again look to like Starlink from SpaceX, that their low Earth orbit satellite constellation for internet access, that will be faster than most land-based internet connections. I know somebody that's been dealing or trialing the technology for these low Earth orbit satellites for internet connectivity, and they're getting like, I think it's 5-6 times faster than what I get at home on the fastest fiber broadband that is available where I am.
Yeah.
And these are trials that are happening on ships in the Antarctic, and they're getting like 400-500 meg speeds up and down.
Yeah.
Extremely low latency because it's low Earth orbit. So we've got like a 10 millisecond ping. It's much faster than what we even have here.
Yeah.
And that's only going to accelerate as time goes by and SpaceX launch more of these satellites into space and stuff, and they make it commercially available. So I do believe that the infrastructure argument is always going to fade over time.
Okay. Yeah.
Even the whole internet connectivity thing.
Yeah. Well, if internet connectivity is, I mean, it's coming in. I don't mean, it's not like there's tons of internet connectivity in Nigeria and other countries, but as we've said, we're talking about a massive population, and there is a significant difference between someone who's got money and is living in Lagos and has, a well-paying job or whatever versus, for every one person like that, there are multiple people who, don't have a bank account and are just dealing with cash and stuff is very basic. They will have a mobile phone, definitely, but it's not going to be a iPhone 11 as with all of these different capabilities and
with the 5G
4G 5G.
The coronavirus causing
maybe that's why Nigeria is not being hit too hard by coronavirus, apparently. Maybe there's no 5G towers. That's one of the most bizarre one. I do enjoy entertaining like crazy ideas. But that particular one, I'm kind of like, oh wait, what? Like how have you managed to connect these two things? Like, I can understand being concerned about this one. I can understand being concerned about this one, but the connection, I'm not.
Correlation doesn't equal.
Yeah. Awesome.
That whole, it's not even an argument. The fact if I ever open up Facebook because my missus told me to look at something or whatever, just scrolling to find something is a painful experience, I find. Especially during this lockdown. I've lost most of my faith in the human beings. But
it's good that you had it.
Yeah. I've always been an optimist. But we're still a long way away for Bitcoin, for the meme of banking the unbanked. But there's so many opportunities for people to build in that space, even like especially locally, people that know the market and understand it far greater than I ever could. There's so many opportunities there, and there's also a lot of people that are willing to back developers now to build these types of infrastructure in those places. Some of the most fascinating stuff that I get or I've had to play around with is like mesh nets and like Go Tenor and things like that. There's a friend from New Zealand that was broadcasting transactions using Go Tenor over like a mesh net over as long a distance as he possibly could in the wilderness. And I think he got it up to like 21 kilometers between just these two devices using radio frequency. So there's just so much to do and so much to build. It's like literally you can pick anything and build if you're inclined to do so.
Yeah, no, it's still very early. I mean, it's been 10 years now since Bitcoin was created, 10 years plus. But yeah, it's still super duper early in terms of the technology and the adoption and everything like that. And yeah, I don't have kids yet, but I have 8 nieces and nephews.
I've got 4 stepchildren and 1 daughter.
Oh wow, okay, there you go.
2 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 leopard geckos. I've got so many variables in my house.
Yeah, I'm curious to see, when they're my age, what is this? What's the world going to look like on multiple levels? But what is technology going to look like? Because you have to keep in mind that, I mean, 30 years ago, if I think back to 30 years ago, what the sort of peak of technology was, or what people had, whether that's in terms of computers or video games or cameras and technology in general versus what it is now. And then you kind of think another 30 years, it's a mind-blowing proposition.
Yeah, there's somebody actually in our company Slack yesterday shared a video from 1984 on the BBC called there's a program called Database.
Okay.
And they sent an email. This video predates me. Mm-hmm. And it kind of just drilled it home a little bit more that, yeah, this is still really early.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So like even people say, oh, Bitcoin's too volatile and things like that. But if you don't become emotionally invested, if you're starting to look at the price every day, sell some Bitcoin because you've clearly got too much invested in there. If you feel that the need to check all of the time, otherwise you're just gambling essentially as well. So the thing for me is such a long period of time, like a low time preference. Since discovering Bitcoin, I much prefer to buy furniture and stuff, and I'll probably spend a little bit more on it, but it will last an awful lot longer. And I try and apply that to everything that we now spend money on and things, just lowering that time preference. And you're probably going to have a lighter footprint on the planet as well through what you're consuming and stuff. But you're still providing, you're still participating in the economy, paying some skilled craftsmen to create a piece of furniture, other than getting something that's made out of compressed cardboard that's going to last less than a year, and you're going to replace it and then buy it again and again. Just lowering that time preference and things like that is what I've learned really to do. So like I say, 10, 20 years, what I'm working towards is for my daughters and my grandkids, if I ever have them. My daughter seems far too career focused. She's going to be to have kids. It appears that way right now, but she's
that always changes. That tends to change at a certain age.
Yeah, she's 13 now, so she's already starting to change. I wish she'd go back to being little and less mouthy. But no, it's just that video from the email and stuff. Like, even from 1984, a couple of years before I was born, and to look and think of maybe Bitcoin at that. Because ultimately Bitcoin is just a protocol.
Awesome. So Danny, where can people go to learn more about Bitcoin in general, and also about Fast Bitcoins and what you guys are doing over there? Fastbitcoins.com.
We have a What is Bitcoin educational section. It's quite in depth, but at a high enough level for the layman to understand. That's what we try to achieve with that. And follow us on Twitter at BitcoinsFast. And myself is BTC Danny on Twitter. I'm more of a watcher than a participant. I grab the popcorn when you tweet.
I have a lot of followers like that, including some very, very, very well-known, very famous ones who will occasionally send me a DM just like, dude, yeah. I won't comment on this, but yeah.
Yeah. Peter McCormack, who I discovered you through, is very similar. I don't know if you follow him.
Yeah.
But he uses Twitter for research, and me and him, we're both avid Liverpool fans, which is something. Another discussion. It's like the most socialist football club in the country. I would literally chop my arm off to see them win the league this season in person.
Don't do that.
No, I won't. But I need them. And then Bitcoin is arguably just pure. The systems are based on self-interest and essentially human greed. That keeps the rules in place because people, so we don't change it for anybody else because we're all just self-interested, and then correlate that with supporting Liverpool my entire life. You've got like Bill Shankly, who is a vocal socialist, as one of like the key people in the club's history and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Peter. Back to the point. Peter also uses Twitter for research.
Yeah. He tweets a fair bit though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, Danny. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really good to talk to you, hear more about your story, and we will talk soon.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks a lot.